Ambassador Zexathara's crystalline form shimmered with satisfaction as the human delegation filed out of the Grand Council chamber. The massive doors of living coral sealed behind them with a resonant hum, cutting off the last glimpse of the retreating figures in their simple, dark uniforms. "Finally!" rasped Elder Vorth, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence. "These humans have seen reason. Their withdrawal from the negotiations proves they understand their place in the galactic hierarchy." The assembled representatives of the Galaxy Council, beings from 47 different species across 3 spiral arms, rippled with approval. For 3 cycles, they had endured the humans' presence at these sacred negotiations, watching with growing irritation as the newcomers insisted on being treated as equals, despite having achieved interstellar travel only 2 centuries ago. Counselor Midith, her luminescent tendrils pulsing with amusement, addressed the chamber. "Did you see their faces when we presented the final terms? 1% voting rights, restricted to their home system, mandatory tribute of their coffee and chocolate to the council reserves. They looked positively stunned." "As they should be," replied Ambassador Zexathara. "The Galactic Peace Accords have maintained stability for 12,000 years. Species must earn their place through millennia of proven wisdom and contribution. These humans, with their brief lifespans and violent history, presume to sit among us as equals." Supreme Arbiter Kyloan, eldest among them at 47,000 years old, raised a gnarled appendage. "The precedent is clear. When the Zalani joined 8,000 years ago, they accepted probationary status for 3 millennia. The Korvashi waited 5,000 years before achieving full membership. These humans expected full rights after a mere 200 years of space travel." The chamber buzzed with agreement. Species after species had followed this ancient protocol, gradually proving their worth before ascending to full council membership. The system worked. It had always worked. "Perhaps now they'll focus on their little colonies and leave Galactic. Politics to their betters," muttered Counselor Mateth. But Supreme Arbiter Kyloan noticed something troubling. Through the chamber's bioluminescent walls, he could see the human ships in the station's docking bay. They weren't preparing for a slow, deliberate departure as expected. Instead, they moved with sharp, coordinated efficiency, loading quickly, systems humming to higher power levels. "Curious," he murmured, but the chamber's celebration drowned out his concern. 3 days later, the first reports arrived. "Supreme Arbiter," gasped communications specialist Enlix, his usual composure shattered. "We're receiving distress signals from 17 different sectors. The Meridian Trade Route, the Outer Spiral Commercial Zone, Slow down," commanded Kyloan. "What kind of distress signals?" "Pirates, Supreme Arbiter. Massive coordinated attacks. But not just any pirates. They're using human military tactics and technology. Entire convoys are disappearing." Elder Vorth's 6 eyes widened in disbelief. "Impossible. The humans were still negotiating 3 days ago. They couldn't have organized—" "There's more," interrupted Enlix. "The Zenith Mining Consortium reports that human ships are offering protection services to independent traders for a fee. The protection appears to be quite effective." Ambassador Zexathara's crystalline form darkened. "Show me the tactical reports." The chamber's central display illuminated with star charts marked in alarming red. Attack patterns spread across major trade routes like a virus, but with surgical precision. The pirates, if they could be called that, struck only council-affiliated vessels and stations. Independent traders, minor species, and even some of the Council's political opponents found themselves mysteriously safe, often escorted by human patrol craft. "This is impossible," whispered Counselor Mateth. "How could they coordinate something like this so quickly?" Supreme Arbiter. Kylo Ren felt the first stirrings of unease. "Communications. Get me Admiral Sarah Chen of the human delegation, immediately." The response came not from Admiral Chen, but from her aide, a young human whose smile was far too polite. "I'm sorry, Supreme Arbiter, but Admiral Chen is currently unavailable. She's coordinating humanitarian relief efforts in the independent systems. Apparently, there's been a sudden increase in piracy, and someone needs to maintain order." The Bay transmission ended. "Humanitarian relief efforts," repeated Elder Vorth slowly. "They're calling this humanitarian relief." "Get me our intelligence reports on human military capabilities," demanded Kylo Ren. "Everything we have." What they discovered chilled the chamber to silence. The humans hadn't just been negotiating for 3 cycles. They'd been observing, learning, mapping every trade route, every patrol schedule, every weakness in the Council's vast but complacent security network. Their military doctrine, developed through countless bloody conflicts on their homeworld and refined through bitter colonial wars, emphasized rapid deployment, adaptive tactics, and precision strikes, while the Council had grown comfortable with their ancient hierarchies and predictable protocols. The humans had built a military designed for chaos. "Supreme Arbiter," reported Intelligence Director Keth, her voice trembling. "The humans appear to have established what they call independent trade protection services across 43 systems. They're not technically violating any Council laws, but they're systematically dismantling our economic control," finished Kylo Ren. The truth was becoming horrifyingly clear. The humans hadn't retreated in defeat. They'd retreated to implement what their military called asymmetric warfare. They couldn't challenge the Council directly, so they were making the Council irrelevant. "How long?" asked Elder Vorth quietly. "Before our member species start asking why they need Council protection when human forces are more effective." The chamber fell silent. "Get me Admiral Chen," ordered Supreme Arbiter Kylo Ren, "and prepare new negotiation terms. Full terms." As if summoned by his words, the chamber's communications array activated. Admiral Chen's weathered face appeared. Her expression neutral, but her eyes holding a glint of something that might have been amusement. "Supreme Arbiter," she said pleasantly. "I understand you wanted to speak with me. I do hope the Council's trade routes are faring well in these troubled times." Behind her, through the viewport of her ship, the assembled might of the human fleet stretched into the darkness. Not the small diplomatic force that had left the negotiations, but an armada that had seemingly materialized from nowhere. Supreme Arbiter. Kylo Ren stared at the display, finally understanding the magnitude of their miscalculation. The humans hadn't come to the negotiations as supplicants begging for acceptance. They'd come as conquerors offering terms.